100 days to go until the opening ceremony. Canadian Olympic pride on full display. This is the new collection of Lululemon uniforms Team Canada athletes will be wearing in Paris for the Olympics and Paralympics. The Canadian Olympic Committee says they are a blend of function and style with Canadian-inspired prints. So you'll see those at the opening, the closing, the medal ceremonies, in the athletes' village, for media appearances. You're going to see them everywhere, basically, and some of them you'll be able to buy, of course, as part of the Lululemon partnership. Looks good and feels good, according to the athletes, so they said. You can even break in them. Look at how comfortable they are. Scott Russell, when you are broadcasting, I want to see you do some of those moves.
That was Phil Wizard, right? He is the Pan American Games champion in breaking, which will make its debut at the Olympic Games in Paris. And Priscilla Gagne was there, the judoka with her guide dog. Everybody looked great in those uniforms. What do you think of them?
Some people think they look like pajamas. I'm going to be honest.
You know what? I like the fact that they talk about that the athletes had a say. They consulted 19 athletes from 14 different sports. It's going to be hot in Paris.
Yes.
So these are breathable uniforms. They're convertible. You can take the sleeves off, make them into shorts, whatever it is. And you know what? I think the athletes look pretty good in them, and they're going to feel comfortable in them.
Well, that is perfect. There you go. There's another close-up look. So you'll see those when Team Canada, I would say, usually marches into Olympic Stadium for the opening ceremony. But if all goes well, they won't be marching. They'll be floating. They'll be sailing, Scott, 100 days from now.
Athletes from 208 nations right along the River Seine, a 6-mile stretch. 140,000 people are going to line the banks of the Seine. Another 220,000 people will be on raised roadways along the river. They had to cut the attendance in half because of security issues. It's going to be tough to manage, Heather.
Oh, can you it was a great idea when they thought of it.
Yeah, it'll be tough to manage. And Paris, as you know, is a security concern. It always is. But it will be out of this world if they can pull it off. And they'll light the crucible, the cauldron at the Jardin de Trocadero with the Eiffel Tower in the background. Hey, it's a Renaissance Games. I think they're going to try, and I think it could be spectacular.
Renaissance Games, that's an interesting way of describing it, because the French organizers have said they hope to sort of reignite the passion for the Games, which was diminished somewhat during the pandemic Games.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the best word to describe the pandemic Games might be sterile. There was a bubble. We talked about the bubble. The athletes couldn't mingle with each other. There were no spectators in the stands. So here's a chance to return to the grandeur of the Olympic spectacle. And I think that's what the organizers of Paris 2024 are really hoping for. It's an Olympic ideal, you know that people of every race, faith, gender, orientation, and ability are welcome at the Games. It's not a perfect ideal, but the fact is that they try. And could be a great Games.
Could be. Listen, you mentioned security. We always talk about some of the issues which are overshadowing the Games before the athletic competitions begin. One of the other issues is, of course, geopolitical concerns. We talked about the opening ceremony. We know we won't see Russian or Belarusian athletes in that opening ceremony. That's as a result of what's going on in Ukraine, Scott.
Absolutely. But the thing is that the ultimate objective of the Olympic Games is to be as inclusive as possible, as I referred to.
Right.
So there has been a provision made for athletes from Russia and Belarus to participate as athletes from independent nations or neutral athletes.
Right.
But they have to demonstrate that they do not support the war against Ukraine. There will be no Russian or Belarusian teams in those kind of events. And there's been a limit set. 58 athletes from Russia, 28 athletes from Belarus, maximum. So the restrictions are very tight. No anthems for those countries. Their medals won't count towards a team medal total. But those athletes, if they can demonstrate they're eligible, will be able to participate in the Games.
You know, when you talk about inclusivity and inclusion, I know you like to talk about 2024 as being the first time we're going to have full gender parity, Scott.
I think it's very significant. There will be, for the first time in Olympic history, as many women competing as men competing. And it's taken some time to get there, Heather. As you know, the first modern games were in 1896. But I think this is really significant. The final event of games will be the women's marathon. Those medalists will receive their medals at the closing ceremony of the games. And, you know, Canadian women are strong. And I think it's going to be a really, really important moment in Olympic history.
Summer McIntosh is a name we're going to be hearing a lot. Many of the Canadian names you're going to be hearing from Scott, because when you're on the air with us in Canada, it's good. It's noon to 6 p.m. right here in Canada, but that's prime time live competition in Paris, isn't it, Scott?
Absolutely. And, we're going to see all the best of Canadian athletes. We're going to see Summer McIntosh, the swimmer, you talked about her, the Canadian women. How about the hammer thrower? Cameron Rogers from Richmond, BC. Then there's the shot putter, Sarah Mitten, world indoor champion. She's from Liverpool, Nova Scotia, the other end of the country. How about the men's basketball team, Heather? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Canada's Athlete of the Year in 2023, going to lead the Canadian men onto the field to play for the first time since the Sydney Games in 2000. Can't wait. Going to be great.
Counting down 100 days to a whole lot more of Scott Russell. Thanks for the time this morning.
Great to be here, Heather.